Edition of our Shovavim weekly shiur, and tonight want to discuss a little bit, continue on what we started last week, and maybe take it a step forward to what's relevant for our generation, and perhaps what is the greatest challenge of our generation when it comes to the inyan of Shovavim and Shmirat Einayim. So we spoke about the story that the Midrash brings from Rab Matya ben Charash, how the great Tana withstood the pressure of Yetzirah. The Midrash says Satan fell completely backwards from him, taking Satan got permission to test this person. Hashem said, you can't win over him. And Satan said, let me try. He said, do it. Gave him permission to test this person with the highest level that a person could be tested in this world. Nobody wants to be tested. David HaMelech asked to be tested because he wanted to be one of the close people in the history to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He wanted to be what we call Regel Revi'i of the Merkava. Just we have Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. We wanted to be the fourth one. And Hashem says, it's not easy. Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov passed many tests. So he said, test me. Please do. Hashem said, I'm not sure if you want to ask that. But I'm going to even tell you what area I'm going to test you with. It's going to be in this area of Shmirat Einayim and promiscuity. And we know what happened with Bathsheba. Even though that the Gemara says, Kol ha'omer David chata eno ela to'eh, at the end of the day, he lost. The key is not to put yourself in that situation. And that's exactly what Rab Matya ben Charash did. He asked his shamash to bring the pit of fire with a spike. He gouged out his eyes. Malach Raphael gets the permission to come from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to give him refuah, a miraculous restoration of his eyesight. I said, I don't want it. I don't want it. Until Hashem guarantees that he's not ever going to be tested again. Imagine, Hashem will never guarantee that for a regular person. But you pause this story at that point and you ask yourself, is that a right decision? Not to ever be able to, Chazal say there are 4 people who are considered dead. Arba'a chashuvim kemet. One of them is a suma. A person that cannot see, his life is worth nothing. 90+% of our information comes from our sight. And he deliberately opted because he didn't want to get himself into another nisayon. And said, this time I did it. Who knows? Next, I don't want a chance. Let it just be. What has happened has happened. I don't want it. Is that a correct decision? Of course, if the Midrash tells it to us, it is. And all it shows us is the tremendous value of Shmirat Einayim, the tremendous value that Shmirat Einayim has. When a person decides not to put themselves into the nisayon, into the challenge of a situation that they may fail, may fail, may not. It's not necessarily going to be something difficult for them. I'll just turn this off. I'm sorry. But it's going to be something that's of challenge. And that's something that we grapple with, especially in our generation. Because we live in a generation that if you're not even opting for the challenge is there. You have the billboards, you have the advertisements, you have the internet. And these are difficulties that living with the goyim brings upon a person. You know, the Pasuk says in Tehillim Kuf Vav, Vayit'arevu b'goyim vayilmedu mima'asehem. That the nature of our nation is in such a way that when we mix with the goyim, we learn from their actions. We become affected by their thoughts, by their values, by the way they live their lives. We mentioned before, briefly, what the Rambam writes in his Sefer Halacha, in Yad HaChazakah, in Hilchot Deot, Perek Vav, Halacha Aleph, Derech Beriyato Shel Adam, the way we are created. We are wired like this. Liot Nimshach B'deotav U'Midrachav. We are drawn and affected in the way we live, in the way we think. Acharei Re'av V'Chaverav V'Noeg Ke'anshe Medinato. We are affected by our friends, our social circles, by the values of our communities. He writes also in Sefer Moreh Nevuchim, and I read to you, if I may, what the Rambam writes, Kasher ibedu tovotenu, says, we have lost so many people, of good people of ours. Ibedu chokhmatenu v'chavurenu ve'imitu chachamenu ad sheshavnu schalim v'netku elenu deotehem kemo shenetku elenu midotehem. Says, we have transferred their values, have been transferred to us, and their midot have been transferred to us. The characteristic traits of the goyim have seeped into us because we live with them, says the Rambam. That's the reality. Take any given generation. Actually, somebody in our generation wrote 2 volumes of Sfarim, very methodically going through history of Jews in Galut in different countries, and show how their mindsets and values adapted to the culture and the values of the goyim. Even if they were in ghettos and they lived dedicated Torah lives, it seeps in. But the more a person could keep it in, of course, the more you could be safe from it. Now, the issue that has been challenging the Western world, even the goyim recognize it, and the reason it has been effective so much in a negative way is because I think we were not ready for it, is the issue of smartphones, smart devices. I grew up personally in a generation that didn't have cell phones. Prior to year 2000 even, certainly before the mid-90s, people who grew up back in those days, there was no cell phones. If you needed somebody, you had to reach them at their office, at their home, within the hours that they were there and they were available. Then the pagers came. I remember the pager time. If someone paged you, so if it was an emergency, you would call back. The car phones. And then the first Nokia cell phones, the heavy, it was like 5 pounds. The blonde. You had to carry it with yourself. Before that it was the bigger ones that you had to carry and so on. But then it became available, and the expectations of social circles was elevated as this became more sophisticated. Now you were expected to pick up. You're expected to text and text back and answer and be available. And that took away, chipped from the things that people had dear to them. And then smartphones that changed and revolutionized the world in many ways, many good ways, but in also very many negative ways. I could read to you many, many pieces of researches, how this affects people's brains, children for sure. In short 15 years, we have come from a generation that maybe only few percent of the children were exposed to smartphones. Now, last year, 95+% of 12, 13-year-olds have smartphones or have it available for them. Talking about almost everyone. This is teenagers, the brains are still developing. They found in the researches, and I have pages and pages here of things that one of my students who actually is in tablet business sent for me in the course of past few years. Anything interesting that he finds, he sends me the text of the research. And when you have the cortex of the brain thinning prematurely as the result of being exposed to excessive use of screen and especially smartphones, it's easy, you carry it with you, sit with it, you eat with it. Every time that the kid cries, you just give it to him. It's a pacifier. And the adults, looking at your phones over 150 extra times for no reason every day. It's an addictive thing. It's shown to increase depression, anxiety, anger. This isn't good people. Satisfaction from life, in families, in marriages. And we haven't even spoken about negative content, which is the majority of, by far, of the content, in megabytes, in the volume, in the entire internet. Multi-billion-dollar industries of negative. We're not even talking about that. Good content, but it's addictive. It ruins lives, marriages. It's shown that kids who have this is linked directly to ADHD, to lack of ability to process information, which is the thinning of the cortex of the brain. That's what it does. And this is something that the Goyim themselves don't know how to deal with it. We were not ready for this. It grew so fast and so much. And there's so much money involved with the industry that we kind of lost the battle on this. And people say, it's not possible. We can't think of life without internet and smartphones, smart devices, let's call it. It's difficult. As much as the frum world won the battle of TV, we lost terribly the battle of internet. And partially because of all the good that's available. You don't have to go to the store. You could buy it online. It's cheaper, it's better, it's faster. And the world is, of course, changing towards that. And in a few years from now, the entire life, the way we lived it a few years ago, will not even be available. It's not going to work. Hence the challenge. And this becomes, again, probably the biggest challenge. We have Yitziat Mitzrayim. We spoke about it, and it's the parasha that we're dealing with right now. And Chazal tell us we got out of Mitzrayim in the zchut that we did not mingle with the Goyim. Even though that even Avodah Zarah was prevalent, but in the zchut that we didn't change our clothing. We didn't mingle, we didn't change our names. We kept that pride that we are different. That what you do is not what I value. And I'm proud about it. I could tell you I don't have it. I don't use internet the way you use it. I don't use smartphones the way you use it. And that's something important. something that is determining factor in our survival of this test. Now, you have I have so much of, just this is goyim dealing with their own problem and acknowledging that we can't stand in front, we don't know how to deal with our children. It has taken over the chinuch of the goyim. Regardless of what school you send your kids, if they have accessibility onto unended internet, unfiltered information is going to be the problem that they deal with it, and we deal with it, of course, in a bigger way. It's a shame that the first filter that came to the market was not even made by the Jews. It was made by the Mormons. Those who remember the covenant eye, which is named after, based on the pasuk in Iyov, Berit karati le'enai ma et bonara le'betula. It's a covenant eye. That system of Shmirat Enai was created by the Mormons. Because even the Goyim recognized that the values ought to be there. It's just that most of humanity has taken a pass on this, as we can't. And then you have a few individuals that they really want to win this battle, and they push. When you recognize that this is where it's at, it helps a tremendous amount. For instance, I heard from Rabbi Biederman, Shlita, said from the Rokeach says, when we say in the morning in the Nusach of the Yiratzon, some people have it, some people don't, that you should save us from Satana Mashchit. Says the Rokeach, what's Satana Mashchit? Satan that destroys. Now the Gemara says in Baba Batra, Tedvav, I believe. Gemara says, Hu Satan, Hu Etzara Malach HaMavit. It's the same malach that does three different things. He tricks you, he prosecutes you, then he delivers the sentencing as well. And says the Rokeach, whenever HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to give someone something good, Hashem wants to give you parnasah, wants to give you health, shidduch, children, calm of mind, a good life. Satan comes and says, you got to give it to him for free. You got to test him first. You got to test him. And if he doesn't stand the test, then he won't get it. So the Rabbi Biederman says, every time that you're tested, that you feel that it's difficult, it's not easy to withstand the nisyonot, think about it in that way. Who knows what HaKadosh Baruch Hu has in store for me? He says a story that in Yerushalayim, they used to say it was an Arab guy that would be a delivery man. He would bring the sacks of food or whatever and would deliver these in hundreds to the courtyard for the business. And the way they kept track of it was every time that he schlepped in a sack, a bag, they would put a shekel. There was a thing in the middle there. They would drop a coin there, and at the end they would count the coins, and that would be his tip maybe or whatnot. But they knew how many bags he brought in, and they would pay him for the merchandise that he delivered. So it was shote, IQ of a potato. So he was waiting for the Jew to turn around, and he would grab a few of these coins. I was so happy. I grabbed a few coins and he didn't see. But shote sheba'olam, he doesn't realize for every shekel that he stole, he lost hundreds of shkalim, because now the heshbon of the bags that he's going to get paid for is going to be less. He didn't know that counting like that. So Rabbi Biederman, that's exactly how it is by Shmirat Enayim. You think, you saw something, you did something. But for that, for everyone, 100 times more bracha is waiting to come if you don't. And that's the real bracha. Somebody, I had this question asked from someone in the Keilah, and it's a similar question was asked to Rabbi Yitzchak Zilberstein. Somebody that was working for a company, that they had offices, and he was getting paid very nicely, but there was one problem. The problem was the computers of the office did not have any filters. So it was always a nisayon. He comes to Yitzchak Zilberstein and says, what do I do? My alternative is to get a job in a Jewish office, a frum office. It pays much less. I don't have all the benefits. So he tells him, look, there are different skulot in the world. Skulah for parnasah, skulah for this, skulah for that. Shalom bayit, children. He says the greatest single skulah in the world is shmirat einayim. You can never miss with that. If you safeguard, I'm not telling people to drop out of their job. Everyone has to ask their moreh hora'ah. Everyone has to have a rav, aser lecharav. Every case is different. That person has to use their brains as well. But conceptually speaking, this is the greatest zchut that brings the Shekhinah inside the person's life. As we said in the beginning, the first shiur, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, my presence amongst you depends on this. And when you have the Shekhinah on your side, it's best segula. You can't find a segula better than that. Reb Chaim Palaji says homiletically, says when the eyes of people look at you only, they only see kedusha. You give them parnasah b'shefa. It's the greatest segula for parnasah. When a person keeps the eyes holy. That the eyes only see good things. I want to end with a story that I heard from my dear friend Ben Shushan here. He spoke for Vaima'en, which one of the stories I just mentioned to you is from Rabbi David Ashir, also of Vaima'en. And he said he got an email, he got a message. This is so powerful. He got a message from somebody that listened to his video. He says, Rabbi, I want to share with you this story. So his grandfather was Rabbi Hirsch Feldman, the Mirish Mashgiach Shiva. This is Rav Shmuel Feldman, or his father, and he says that his grandma had an issue, a machala in her eyes, that at the advanced age they had to basically extract the eyes. It was, the visit to the hospital was arranged for early morning to do the operation. And when they went to the hospital with his mother and his uncle, they see the grandma is Rebbetzin Feldman is very, very tired. So they thought it's because of the anxiety before the surgery, the thought. And turns out, no. She says, I stayed up the whole night. I was speaking to my eyes. Farewell, to say goodbye. Remembered all the scenes that I saw, thanking HaKadosh Baruch Hu for my eyes, remembering my childhood in Europe where I grew up, and all the things that I grew up with and saw, and then being in the camps through the World War II, and then traveling to United States, building a family, seeing the day of my wedding, seeing the children that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave me, seeing them grow up, seeing them walk down their chuppah, seeing their children, seeing my great-grandchildren. So much to say goodbye to. So many good things that these eyes have seen. For I part with them. And if a person thinks about the eyes like that, every time that you have a challenge, thinking of the good things, the best things that the eyes have seen, the pages of Gemara, the pages of Torah, being able to look at the Sefer Torah, like Ari HaKadosh writes, the shefa that comes from the Sefer Torah, just looking at it by Agba. Those good things that the person could do, he will never ever want to see something bad. Be'emet. We don't have to say goodbye to our eyes, but take a moment to think that later in life you want to look back, even if you're not saying goodbye to eyes. Say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I looked at good things, the good moments that you gave me. Those beautiful, beautiful moments that we're waiting for. It could be a zchut for seeing those days of those who want a zivug, those who want children, those who want health and happiness in their life. To see good things. Ur'eh betuv Yerushalayim. See the good. Eyes are the most precious things, and we live in a generation that every single person is like Yosef HaTzadik. Day in and day out, we're bombarded by the nisyonot. And Ari HaKadosh told Marchu Reb Chaim Vital, he said, your mitzvot are greater than the mitzvot of the Tanaim and Amoraim. And Reb Chaim Vital said, me? My mitzvot? He said, yes, because in the time of Tanaim, there was not klipot nearly as much as what we have. There's so much klipot, and this is 500 years ago in Sfat. What do you have back then already? Like the Satmar Rav said, you could see more pritzut in one day, more challenges in one day today than a whole year of what they were exposed to, or even a lifetime. And if that's what Ari HaKadosh told Marchu, I think it's safe to say every single person that's Omed Ben Isayon is like Yosef HaTzadik. We marvel at Yosef HaTzadik. If we would give the opportunity to say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is talking, I'm going to put you in position of Yosef HaTzadik. And if you also stand in Nisayon, you will be, fill in the blank, Hasadik. You will be the Yosef HaTzadik. And for generations and generations, your children, the Gemara says, the children of Yosef, Ein Harai is not Sholet, does not affect them. Nothing bad affects them. Can you imagine? Would you push to stand that Nisayon? Well, every person today could be a Yosef HaTzadik for themselves. And Be'ezrat Hashem, in the zchut of the recognition, the realization that we actually could do it. It's not something that's out of reach. If a person really pushes their limits and davens, starts from one push at a time, 1 minute at a time. And I think that's maybe the deeper pshat when it says Yom Yom. When it says Eshet Potifera, the wife of Potiphar, was pushing Yosef into this. It says every day, Yom Yom. And maybe homiletically we could say that you know how Yosef won this battle? If he would have thought, he would think, look, I'm going to be here, I'm alone, I'm 17, 18, full of testosterone, and I'm, no family, no yeshiva, no Torah, no father, no mother, nobody knows what happens in Mitzrayim, stays in Mitzrayim, and she is one of the most prestigious, she was one of the most beautiful women ever in the history of the creation. If he would have thought that he would never win. His secret was today. Yom Yom. Baruch Adonai Yom Yom Yamos Lanu. Every day. I know I promised this to finish with the previous story. One last. Stipler Gaon, the father of Reb Chaim Kanievsky, was drafted to the army in Russia. Like, you know how cold it could get. You're talking about degrees below zero that will make your thoughts freeze. And he had to stand guard for, hours and hours. I don't remember exactly, it was 4 hours or 8 hours. But every 4 or 8 hours, it would switch. And one Friday night, he had to stand guard. And now, for the guard, they had a specific coat. You couldn't stand, you would freeze to death if you would stand with a regular coat. They had a specially made coat for the guard to wear it, to be able to survive and stand there until the next post. So the guy that was before him, he had hung up this coat on a branch on a tree and left. Now, a branch on a tree is muktzah on Shabbat. Can't take it. But it's sakanat nefashot. Muktzah is the Rabbanan. So Stipler said over this story, he said, I told myself, I'm going to take it in 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Nothing burns in 5 minutes. Or freezes in 5 minutes. I said, 5 minutes? I said, zelo nora. 5 more minutes. I'll take it in 5 minutes. I said, 5 minutes. I went through the whole post. And that's sometimes the key to deal with it. Yom. So today, it's not going to happen today. Not this time. We'll think about, are you Moshe Rabbeinu? I'm not Moshe Rabbeinu, I'm no Yosef HaTzadik. Or I am. But not this time. And that's the key. Every time that you do it and you're successful, you close your eyes and Hashem, help me continue this. And as we mentioned, the Vilna Gaon writes in Mishlei, in Perek Aleph Pasuk Chaf Gimel, every time that you do a mitzvah, there is an energy, a shefa, spiritual energy generated from that mitzvah that does not sit until he gets you to do more of that. So you get a siyata dishmaya, a force behind you. Now you're not alone. Now you have one malach pushing. Next time you'll have 2 and 3 and 4. And at some point it becomes something that you just do. It becomes a lifestyle. But that Hashem should help all of us and all of Klal Yisrael to stand in the nisayon and be kedoshim. Kedoshim tiyu ki kadosh ani Hashem Elokechem.